All right, this is so fun for me because this is when I hear people talk, and we just listened to some great speakers talk about all the things they're doing. I just came from a soil farm school, talk about all the great things people are doing. My brain has always worked, and then just hopefully through time becomes better at it, is connecting the dots. Okay, so I see, and I like to look at things from that systems view and try to bring in all these amazing things that we know, like intuitively know, are good for us and good for our soil, good for our planet, but we just can't always make the connections because we live in a world that really loves to make things as simple as possible, right? Or as linear as possible, because it makes it safe for our brains to hear something and be able to understand it right away. Okay? But what we miss when we do that is we miss all the reasons and all the ways that things are happening. Easier said, what my parents used to say is I just never forgot, or I never got out of that stage, that 2-year-old stage of asking why. So like my whole life is when I hear something, I'm like, well, why does that work? Why does that work? Well, why is that? And until I can't get any further in that question, I keep trying to seek answers. So what I want to try to hopefully bring to you is just some perspective and education. Okay, I am not telling you how to do anything. I am not sharing necessarily what works for every single person. But what I can share with you is some of those dots that I've been able to connect through my career and experiences to show you how soil health and human health are so connected and so similar to each other. Okay, so that's what we're going to kind of cover. That's who I am. This is kind of like my passion, my purpose, so I have the education, but whatever, I just had to do that. I was a high school teacher for 20 years. I taught high school science. That was my first career, with a focus on environmental and natural sciences. So in my classroom, I'd have my students grow gardens. I would have them build vertical gardens. I'd have them build hydroponics, things like that. Try to give them practical applications to the real world type of thing. During that whole time, in 2005, I joined the military, the Army National Guard, as a 30-year-old. So I went to basic training at 31, and they called me grandma because I went with all the 17-year-olds that would go in the summer. But because I was the teacher of those 17-year-olds, that's when I went. So we always have a joke in the military that a recruiter came to recruit my students and recruited this old lady instead. But for me, it was a career that was a good choice. I still am in the Army National Guard for Minnesota. I've been in now for 19 years. I'm a lieutenant colonel, and I've been a medical officer, logistics officer, and now I have the privilege of being their director for holistic health and fitness and work for the Department of Military Affairs. So that's what I do as well. And then with all that, like all of us, when you start a career and you learn more and you kind of see how things are connected, I decided to retire from teaching in 2018, luckily before COVID, right? I mean, that wasn't known, but oh my gosh, bless all the teachers that had to teach during COVID, and students that had to go to school during COVID. That's a whole nother thing. At that time, I went back for my master's in nutrition and functional medicine, which really just means I try to understand the root cause of disease and help people heal from root cause to optimal health. And so I've done that as well. Those are pictures of my farm. I call it a farm. You can call it what you want. I don't know what it really is. All I know is my purpose is to have animals that I know how I raise them and we can eat as a family. My purpose is to plant as many things that are edible as possible. And my purpose is to use the land for its natural uses and figure out nature as medicine. So we just plant food everywhere. We just have 70 acres, lots of perennials, lots of prairie type of stuff, lots of fruit, shrubs. And then those pigs in the top left are kuni pigs. Anybody familiar with kunis? Nice. So that's what we have as our pigs. Just enough to have, we butcher 2 a year. So we have a breeding pair, we have 2 feeders, and we let them have 1 litter a year and just kind of keep recycling. We have chickens, we have turkeys, we do eggs, we do honey. And then the picture on the right is one of my favorites because a lot of times we get stuck into the mindset that we love for farming to be beautiful, right? We like the rose, we like the whatever, we like the black dirt in the spring. And that one on the right is my kids in our chaos garden. So a chaos garden, if you're not familiar, it's just a whole bunch of different kinds of seeds that you plant. We literally just throw them out in a half acre, and then whatever grows, grows. And for kids, they love it, maybe adults too, because you go in, you're like, what's in there? They bring it out, and so that wheelbarrow was one day of going in the chaos garden and seeing what you could come out with, okay? So just a way, and we're going to talk about a lot of ways that you can do different things to always grow food, always cover the soil, always feed back into the soil. Okay, my disclaimer always is that I'm never, and I don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room because I don't learn anything. So if anybody has anything to share and add as we do this, please do so. That's where I learn best, is from others. And my other disclaimer is that this is education, okay? I am not going to tell you what to eat, what not to eat, that you're good or bad or evil or whatever if you do certain things, like you can't drink beer. Like, that would be ironic, right? I'm not going to say anything like that because I don't believe in food as being good or bad. I believe food is medicine, it's healing, and it's what our body wants to nourish us and make us our best selves. And all I can do is just give you what we know right now on the different kinds of foods that do that. And here's the big shocker, is that the soil health is directly correlated to the health of the food that we put into our bodies. And that the gut, our gut, is a mirror image of the soil microbiome, okay? So it's all related. We're going to talk about that. All right, so the what, okay? Let's talk about the microbes, because that's where the connection is. Okay, everybody's probably heard the whole phase, all the rave about the gut microbiota, right? Like your gut microbiome, all these things you can do. Take your probiotics, take your prebiotics, eat fermented foods, okay? The research has taken off like in the past 10, 15 years. It's out there, it's amazing. Who's heard of fecal transplants? That's a whole thing, right? So if you want someone else's poop, it's out there, okay? You can ingest it as a pill, you can get it as an enema, but we know, as gross as that is, that it actually works, okay? So if you take the product of that microbiota, which is feces, and it's healthy, and you put it into an unhealthy person, you can see immediate changes in their gut health that are beneficial. So this world is blowing up. Who knows what's going to come out in the future, but it's amazing, it's exciting, and it's still, just like the soil, all about that biological activity, okay? So a lot of times, how we think is the language that we use, right? So I always ask people, I talked about this at the beginning, is what if we use language to talk more about it as a system, okay? So on the left is basically what most of the world or most of the United States thinks, right? Conventional is usually linear thinking or a sign-symptom approach, okay? I like the term you name it, you blame it on something, and then you tame it with something. Can anybody think about anything in agriculture that we might do that with? Okay, we name the problem, we try to blame it on something, too little of this, too much of that, okay? And then we tame it with whatever we think it needs to be doing. And that's not wrong. Like, again, none of this means that we're not good people or bad or anything like that. It just means that we're off balance, right? Because we forget that there's also a functional approach, okay? And that's what systems thinking is. For systems thinking, you think about it, and then you link it to the system, and that will usually get you to the most root cause of something. So you address it basically further upstream, and that will affect all the downstream effects. And that's really our goal, right? Not to treat signs and symptoms, but to treat the root cause. And that's true whether you're talking about your field, your gut, or a disease that you have. Okay? The more you can get into the root cause, the better chance you will have of treating the whole system. And when you take the word functional and you break it down, all it really means is to be useful and not be attractive. So going back to, yeah, we like the looks of black dirt because that's what we grew up with, right? We were told that's a fertile field. It's black, it's beautiful. Oh, and look at all those beautiful rows. That's amazing. And again, those aren't bad things. Like, that's beautiful, that is nature. But can it be possible for it to be chaotic as well and still be beautiful or still be functional? Those are just different ways to look at things. Okay, there's a lot here, but what I want you just to look at is that the microbiome, whoops, sorry to go back, okay, consist of, and we like to focus on a lot, is the microbiota, right? So those are going to be all of the bacteria, the fungi, the viruses, all the little things that are in the soil. And we know that when we talk about soil that we need to have biological activity, right? It needs to have its own life, its own energy. Okay, so that's important. But it also has its theater of activity. Okay, so that's where it takes everything else that is influencing that microbiota to determine what the most important thing is, which are the metabolites. Okay, so remember, metabolites are basically the products of a healthy microbiome or a healthy microbiota. And that's where you get things that really matter, like minerals, vitamins, okay? Or things that can really hurt us, like toxins, okay? So it's a system itself, and that's really what I want you to see with this, is its own system, okay? So it matters who's there, it matters what their potential is, but what we really needs to matter when you connect soil health to human health is what are they doing and what are they giving us, okay? And obviously, whatever the products of that microbiota are, that's going to go into the plants that you're growing. It's going to go into the animals that are eating those plants. And it's going to go into the humans that are eating those plants and animals, okay? I mean, we all remember learning that, right? Like we eat, you know, the whole cycle of life. Like we eat something, they eat something, and it all matters, okay? So this is how it all kind of comes back to the human, and it makes sense then that basically our human gut is a direct reflection of the soil because it depends what it is. So just so you know, with soil and nutrients, typically what happens, okay, is you can have things grow. So there's a difference between food or plants or animals that are not nutrient dense versus nutrient dense, okay? So I think a lot of times we think that food is food, and it's all nutrients, but it's not, okay? Your body, for example, when you eat an apple and a bowl of cereal and a piece of toast, you call them things like an apple, a bowl of cereal, or Cheerios, and a piece of toast. Once it gets below your neck, your body has no name for food. What is the only thing that your body pays attention to at that point? What do you think? What the nutrients? Yeah, what's in there? What are you giving your body from that things that you're ingesting? Okay? So unfortunately, if the nutrients aren't in the soil and those products are going to be toxins, that's going to be nutrient poor, it's going to be low diversity, and you're basically have a nutrient poor, very sterile biome. Okay? When you have sustainable, you have got diversity, it's nutrient rich, toxin free, and then you get nutrient density. Okay, so our goal, of course, is to have diversity, just like we want in our agriculture for soil health. We want that in our gut as well. Okay, I just want to point out, this is a study that just tells you, I'll just read the first sentence. The soil and the human gut contain approximately the same number of active microorganisms. Okay, so they're about the same. Do you think that's an accident? No. Okay, it's all connected. Okay, this one is also talking about the microbiome from urbanized and pre-agricultural populations. Okay, and all it's basically showing is that recent human history has shaped the gut microbiota through the loss of gut microbes, potentially impacting the overall functionality of the gut microbiome. So what they're realizing is as the soil health has changed, so has the human gut. Okay, so they're basically just showing these things. It's just there's more research. Okay, I always love to give people research because they always want it, but because I'm kind of like that person that's like, you know, tries to think outside the box, I always ask the question too, is that can you actually ever prove something in a system according to this kind of research? No, and to me, that's a good sign that you're thinking systems. Okay. System is so complicated, and because the research we love is linear, it's the double-blind study with one or two variables, everything else is controlled, and I can prove to you that these one or two things made a difference. And there is a place for that, absolutely. But there isn't a place for that if you're trying to understand and prove that systems work. Okay? So sometimes the way we think about how we look at research is the type of research that we use in America really reflecting systems and systems thinking, and it's not, okay? So I always urge you to pay attention to your intuition, pay attention to your results, pay attention to your animals, pay attention to your soil. That is your proof, okay? That is where the proof is. All right, so why does this all matter, okay? It's because of chronic illness. Chronic illness, just to define it, means illness that lasts longer than 90 days, whereas an acute illness is a short illness, usually under 90. Now, why this matters is because our health system is set up to treat acute illness, right? I expect that all of you, if you had a broken arm, you probably would want to go to a doctor and get that fixed, and I would highly recommend that, okay? If you have an acute infection, you probably need to go to a doctor and get that fixed. Also recommend that, okay? Our medical system is very good at that. If you have something really bad, you need surgery, then you go and do it, right? The problem is that 93% of our population is chronically ill, and that's what's wrong with most people. And we have no answers in our medical system for that, besides Band-Aids. Treat signs and symptoms, okay? Again, it's not bad to treat a sign or symptom, but if you never get to the root cause, you actually never fix the problem, okay? So I want to tell you how this is all connected. Here's just an infographic of how bad it is. I don't think I have to tell any of you. How many of you know somebody that has a chronic illness? Okay, if you're not sure what chronic illnesses are, heart disease, brain disorders, autoimmune disorders, allergies, all those are chronic illnesses, okay? How many of you know somebody under the age of 40 that has a chronic illness? 30? 20? Okay, so it used to be like, sure, that happens to everybody as you get older, okay? But it's not happening to people just when they get older. This is happening to young people as well, okay? We're overfed and undernourished. Again, there might be plenty of things to put into your mouth, but how many of those things actually nourish you? That's the difference, and that's always the focus, is what is nourishing you, okay? Think of your body. Your body has systems in place to help you heal, help you feel better, help regulate your blood pressure, help your brain function. But it needs ingredients, it needs nutrients to do that. And if it's not provided with those, it's going to malfunction. It's going to malfunction. But it is a pretty good darn job of taking care of you for a long time before that happens. Does anybody want to guess how many decades you have a chronic disease before you usually see most signs and symptoms? Any guesses? It's okay if you're wrong, people. You're not going to get in trouble. You can just guess. Yeah, about 2 decades. Okay? About 20 years before you actually maybe get diagnosed with, for example, diabetes, okay, or heart disease, or Alzheimer's, or Parkinson's. Your body is already working to try to fight against it. It does a really, really good job for a long time until it can't, okay? And then it shows its ugly face. I want to tell you this, I want to just show you this because I am not here to argue that COVID was not real and it wasn't horrible and it's still not horrible. Obviously, it's a very, very bad thing. But just give me a second, and if everybody can remember to 2019, 2020, 2021, and how inundated you were with like healthcare advice, vaccinations, education, warnings. Just think about the inundation of material you got. For all of that, about 1.2 million people have died, and I just took this last week, from COVID. 1.2 million, too many people, absolutely. But let's just put it in perspective. Chronic illness, #1 thing that affects Americans. Every year, it kills 1.7 million people. And COVID, to date, 4 years later, has killed 1.2, okay? But it's like that frog, putting him into a boiling pot versus the slow warm water. We're just exposed to it all the time, and it's just like, oh, sure, it's just normal, right? But what I'm trying to tell you is it's not normal. This is a cause and effect of poor nutrients that start with poor soil. I just want to show you too, maybe some of you know this, maybe you don't, but chronic illness is all these things. I often hear when I work with clients of like, well, I have heart disease, but that's genetic. Or I have diabetes, but that's genetic. And there is a genetic component. I am not saying that. I am not saying that there is genetic components. But even with genes, the science of epigenetics has come out, and your genes can be turned on and off. Most genes can be turned on and off based on the environment they're in. So that means that a bad gene could never be turned on under the right circumstances, okay? Or it could be turned off under the right circumstances. But how many of these surprise you? How many people knew that things like Parkinson's disease, dementia, and Alzheimer's are chronic illnesses? Okay? Things like all of the gut issues that we deal with. This is one of the most prominent things that people are sick with now. IBS, Crohn's, colitis, all those things are also chronic illnesses. Cancer is a chronic illness. All right. Okay, so what chronic disease really is, because my brain thinks root cause, okay? What it really is a sign or symptom of gut inflammation triggering an overactive immune system or autoimmunity that causes chronic inflammation. So we now know that every disease starts out with chronic inflammation. And that inflammation typically starts with inflammation in your gut. Because your gut controls everything else, it spreads across your body to become systematic. And then depending on the person, kind of depends where it shows up. Some people it shows up in their brain. Some people it shows up in their cardiovascular system. Some people it stays in their gut. A lot of people it shows up in their brain as mental health. Okay? Anxiety, depression, ADHD, those things are all inflammation. Okay? So that's a different way that maybe you haven't heard about of how to think about chronic illness. Okay? Basically what this is saying is that how many things are in your gut, but what I really want you to look at there is that the gut microbiome is almost fully formed by ages 2 to 3. Okay? And that's not surprising, and we know that now. We know that when we started increasing C-sections and weren't letting babies be born vaginally, they weren't exposed to the biome in the mother's vagina, and they already started out being immunosuppressed. We know that. We also know that kids that live in higher sterile environments, okay, always like don't touch this, don't touch that, don't touch that, that they also are more likely to have some sort of chronic illness or be immunosuppressed. We know that families that don't have pets have a less diverse gut microbiome, or animals in general. We know that families that don't have, or kids that don't have siblings, have less diversity of their gut microbiome, or kids that don't go to like public daycare. Okay? So the more that kid is exposed to different diversity and things, and you see it. What do babies do? What do kids do with their mouths and hands? They touch everything, slobber all over it, and then put it back down. They take a dog and just literally put their face into the dog's face with an open mouth, and we think it's disgusting, but that is their gut microbiome forming. Okay? But we became very sterile for the right reasons, because there are really bad things that can happen from infections if you don't wash your hands. Yes, wash your hands. Do we need to wash our hands 85 times a day? I don't know. Do we need to wash our hands and then put antibacterial things on us all the time? I don't know. Okay? All I know is that we have become more and more sterile, and with that, the diversity of our microbiome has gotten down. All right? Other research that's out there, just talking about the immune relation, okay? So if you ever really dive into the gut, your gut basically is your immune system, okay? Everything starts and ends in the gut when it comes to immunity, okay? And if you think about it, it's the direct pathway between the rest of your body. It's the only place in your body that when you ingest something, you're exposed to something, it has a direct pathway to your bloodstream, to your lymph, to your brain, to everything else. So it has to be on high alert all the time for immunity. So your gut is really your immune system. If your gut is taken care of, everything else is better taken care of, and we know that. People that have more diverse guts are sick less often, okay? And they usually have better mental health. They're both related, and I'll talk about that when it comes to like the mental connection. Here's some signs of gut inflammation. So if we go back to that inflamed gut, okay, leads to inflammation in the rest of your body, if you can buy into that. And then chronic inflammation over a long period of time causes disease. And it kind of just depends on what disease it is. Look at all the signs and symptoms. I just want you to look at this, and can anybody relate to maybe any of these? I can relate to a bunch on here. Anxiety, heartburn, constipation, bloating, cramps, acne, allergies, headaches, memory loss, okay? All that stuff that we're just kind of like, I wonder if this is related, can be traced eventually back to your gut. Our second brain, you probably have heard this or seen it, but 70% of your immune system is in our digestive tract, okay? And that there is a direct line. A lot of times we always say that the blood-brain barrier is super protected, like things can't pass through it. But we do know that the gut has a direct line to your blood-brain barrier, okay? So things that happen in your gut happen in your brain. And this isn't going to be surprising when you think about it. Like when you get nervous, where do you feel it? Your gut, right? And we have words to even describe that, like gut instinct, or it's just my gut tells me so. So these are things that I think as humans we've known for a long time. We just have maybe disconnected from a little bit, okay? All right, more research. Okay, this is the one that really ties us back to the soil, because all of our vitamins and minerals come from the soil. Okay, that's just that simple. Minerals especially come from the soil, and a lot of times those minerals get used and then changed into vitamins when they get to plants and animals, or stay in the mineral form. Okay, here are the vitamin and mineral deficiencies in the United States. Okay, so these are the people not meeting the RDA. RDA is just the recommended daily allowance. Okay, now before you look at how just disastrous these numbers are in deficiencies, here's what you should know. The RDA was made during World War II. And it was made to basically know what was the minimum amount of vitamins and minerals someone needed to not die on the battlefield. We're not talking optimal, people. We're not talking about best case scenario. We're talking like, I need you not to die, and here is the range. That's what this is based off of. This is not based off optimal. So just think about how these numbers would change if it was actually the optimal amount that we need in these. Here's another curveball. RDA's, recommended daily allowances, are based off the average weight of a human. What do you think the average weight was of a male during World War II?
150 pounds.
Yeah. Look at you just with all the answers. I love it. Gold star. Okay, what do you think the average weight of a male now is?
175.
210. Okay, average female during World War II. Come on, we're on a roll. Just go. Let's 120. It was 120 to 130. What do you think the average female is now? 170. Okay, so not only, because obviously the bigger you get, the more vitamins and minerals you need. So first of all, we're talking about minimum to not get sick. We're talking about people that are a lot smaller than the average person now, and we still really, really suck for meeting our mineral and vitamin requirements. And if that is literally like what life is made of for nourishment, vitamins and minerals, is it no wonder why we're so sick? Really, we are not nourished. We are not nourished at all. And we know if you look at soil, how's the mineral content in soil been doing over the past 50 years? Right, in the tank. And if that's our main source of minerals for us to eat, we have nowhere to go but keep going down, okay? Does this make sense? So we need to be able to get those nutrients from the soil into the plants, into the animals, into the humans, into the gut, and let your body do what it wants to do, which is just take care of you and flourish, but it doesn't have the information to do it, okay? We are literally just missing all those ingredients. Okay, vitamin deficiencies just kind of talks about why they're so important in the gut. We could talk about each vitamin separately. We could talk about each mineral separately. I know that every single client that I've ever tested for vitamin D has been deficient. I know that every single client that I've ever tested for magnesium has been extremely deficient. Okay? I don't know anybody, even people that are really healthy, that hasn't been deficient at least one vitamin or mineral when they get tested. Okay? So think about those effects as you go downstream, downstream, downstream of how that's going to show up in how you feel, how you think, okay? How you have motivation, how you move. All the things are affected by those vitamins and minerals. So, with all that depressing news, which I know is depressing, okay, there's always a way forward, just like there is with soil health, okay? And it doesn't mean that you have to do everything. This is the number one issue I have working with clients, when they want to change how they eat or they want to improve their gut health. They're like, okay, I'm all in. Great, okay? Or it's also great if you're not. But then that's the thing of if I don't do it 100%, then I'm just going to stop. You don't need to do anything 100%, okay? You just need to do something one day at a time, do something else, make a good choice as often as you can, and they will add up on their own, okay? That's the goal. So how do you heal the soil, heal the gut, and then heal the person? Okay, that's really our goal. First of all, you feed the soil. We've already learned about all that today. That's what we've been talking about, right? So I just kind of listed all the soil health principles on there. But you feed the soil nutrients, or you feed the soil what it needs so it can make those nutrients that will feed the plants, feed the animals, feed the humans. Okay? Here's all the things that can influence that soil. You all know this. Okay? You all know this as farmers of all the variables. It's a system. It's a system. As much as you would like to be able to just be like, it's this one thing. If I just did this one thing, everything would be fine. Okay? We all know that's not how it works. And all it really takes is that observation, that understanding, that trying, and that trial and error to get to the soil that you can, or the best result that you can get. So how do you heal the gut? You weed it, you seed it, and you feed it. Okay? Sounds familiar, right? Weed, seed, feed. That's how you heal the gut as well. Okay? So how do you weed it out? You got to weed out the triggers. Okay? These are the things that are going to make your gut not your best friend, okay? And when I say these things, none of these things are bad once in a while. It's the fact that as humans, we kind of go overboard with some of them, okay? Like antibiotics. You should definitely take an antibiotic when you need to take an antibiotic, okay? But, Liz, can you relate to any of these? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
I wish I would have seen this 2 months ago.
Yeah. Obviously, processed foods, what all these things have in common is that they have toxins in them, or they make toxins. And a body, toxins to the gut are basically like a bleach where they get rid of all the good stuff, and you don't have any good stuff remaining to actually heal you. You just have bad stuff that's causing a whole lot of problems, okay? So that's what these all have in common. Again, it's okay to use any of these. This isn't about I am going to eliminate every single bad thing from my life, okay, or everything that could be a trigger. We all still have to be humans. But the point is that your body your immune system will fight these things off in a certain amount. But if we keep doing it, that's when it becomes over-responsive, and that's when you get autoimmune response. And that causes inflammation, okay? So weed it out, then seed it. This is where you get to actually plant the seeds. The seeds for a good gut are going to be your prebiotics and your probiotics. Now, a lot of people don't know that a prebiotic just is the fiber that feeds the probiotics, which are the living organisms, okay? So the prebiotic is what probiotics eat, okay? That's really all it is. So really, getting enough fiber. I can't stress this enough. There's been so much talk and research that fiber is one of the key nutrients that we are just deficient on, and it's just causing a whole bunch of problems that we don't even realize are related. To give you an example, okay, 150 years ago, we ate an average of 50 to 150 grams of fiber a day. 50 to 150, okay? Keep that in mind. What do you think the RDA is for fiber for an adult? Anybody want to guess what range of fiber do they say you should eat a day? Yep, they say 25 to 35, a little bit more of your male, but let's just say we'll just say 30 to 50, okay? And that's okay, it's at the low end, it's adequate, not great. Now that's recommended. What do you think the average is for an American a day? Less than 10. Wow. You should just come do that. Come on up here. I'm impressed. Yep, less than 10 grams a day. we're lucky. Like one of the first things I work with people on fiber is just getting them into double digits. And you think that that should be easy. It is not easy. Okay, it is not easy. Because when you eat processed food, all the fiber is stripped out. Okay, so you really have to focus on eating whole foods, real foods to get fiber. And we just don't do that, right? We just don't do it. Okay, so fiber is huge. Okay, other good prebiotics are going to be your phytonutrients, which really means fruits and vegetables. And then the probiotics are the living organisms. When he was talking about what's in his beer, when he added like the raspberry, berries have great living organisms when they ferment it, when they ferment the beer, ferment the wine in a good, healthy way, then that's going to add some extra organisms. Those are good things, okay? It's just a balance, okay? I mean, if you're drinking 8 beers and then not eating anything, okay, we're off balance. If you're drinking a beer and eating some fiber or some, prebiotics or some other food, your body is in balance, okay? So just like everything else, it's just a balance thing. That's it. But there are definitely benefits to beer like this, okay? And then, here's the fiber, okay? So here's kind of the recommendations that we talked about, okay? Another little fun fact, because I love facts, as you can tell, is that when the hunter-gatherers would eat their 100 grams of fiber a day or more, their poop would be about 2 pounds a day. Okay, not all at once. That sounds painful and awful. Okay, but throughout a day, and I know that seems like a lot and maybe like inconvenient to poop that much, but it's so critical. Like I do not talk to anybody about nutrition without talking about their bowel movements because they are directly related. And if you want to talk gut, you better be talking bowel movements because they're directly related, okay? So I'm sorry if it embarrasses you, but it's super, super important. And I highly recommend the book, Everybody Poops, if this is not a conversation that you're ready to have. It will ease you into it. So 2 pounds a day, okay? Now I say that because of course we're gonna compare it today. What do you think the average amount is in weight of bowel movements? So I don't say the word poop, okay? I just did to say the word poop, but you know what I mean, okay? Are a day for humans. You're so close. I mean, you were like 100%, but I'm even gonna give that to you. 4 ounces. 4 ounces, people. And nice. Well played. Buy that man another beer. That was well played. I love it. Yeah. So I hear people that are like, well, it's just normal for me to have a bowel movement once a week or once every 3 days. And there's honestly nothing normal about that. If you're not having a bowel movement daily, that's not even really great, but that's better. We're looking for like 2 to 3 a day and then nice substance to them. Okay. But where does all that substance come from? The fiber. Yep, the gut and the fiber. So again, if you're not getting enough fiber, you're probably not going to have good bowel movement, so on and so forth. Okay? All right, the other thing to feed is eat the rainbow. Okay? So every color, and this is really fascinating, like when you talk about red foods and orange foods and purple foods and white foods, they all have different health benefits. And so just like when we're talking about plants, just like when we're talking about soil, the diversity of what you eat matters, okay? And just think about that. How many of you go to the grocery store and buy different kinds of vegetables and fruits every time you go? Nice, yeah. Very few people do. It's the same list every week, right? Oranges, apples, bananas for some people, okay? And then, like maybe whatever their greens or vegetables are, carrot, celery, whatever, okay? Those are great. Keep eating those. But the challenge would be, can you go to the grocery store each week or 2 weeks or however you go and try something different, or that's a different color, okay? We've gotten very limited in all the variety that we eat, and there's so much more out there that we could eat, and we just don't. And that's what I love, too, about this brewery and talking about all different kinds of fruits and berries they grow, okay? That is an amazing diversity, and those berries are just loaded with phytonutrients, which just do all kinds of favors for those probiotics. I love this chart. You can print this out. I mean, and if we share this, I'm happy to share this PowerPoint with anybody that's here. All these pages have a link to all the images, so if you want to see a bigger version of them. But it's a fun little chart where you can just do a checklist. You can do it for yourself. You can do it with your kids, your grandkids, and just to see if you're getting all the colors throughout the week from your fruits and vegetables. Okay? Eat something purple. Eat something red. Eat something orange. Okay, and the best way to feed your gut, so we're going to get the most for the least amount of effort, so the most ROI, basically, return of investment, are these things. And this is what I really work on my farm or where I live, okay? Try to go and find out what you can eat, what's around you, and I will guarantee you there's a lot to eat around you. You just don't know it yet. Okay? Or maybe you do know it now and are doing it now. That's great. I'm going to pass this around as I'm talking. This is my most favorite book ever. It's called 300 Herbs. And in the back is a condition. So you can look up acne. You can look up, hormone problems. You can look up low sex drive. You can look up anything. Okay? And it'll get you to the herb that helps with it. And then tell you what it's used for and how to use it. Okay? So it's basically like a medical reference guide for herbs. And these are the herbs that are in North America. These are the ones that you and I are going to find in our backyards, in our forests, in our prairies. So every week, you can ask my daughter, we go out and we go collect plants in our yard, and then we put them into a pot and just let it simmer and let those chemicals come out, and then we can drink that tea through the week. Okay? That's one example. You can also make them into tinctures, which is combining the plant matter with alcohol and then letting it sit in that for like 6 weeks. And then that concentrated form is like a dropper medicine, okay? So for example, in our house, Cammie, if I said, Cammie, you got a cut in your finger that won't stop bleeding, I'll say, go get some yarrow, and then she goes and finds the yarrow outside, which is all over. If you don't know what yarrow is, it's all over. It's amazing. You put that on a bleeding cut, like bleeding really bad, and it just stops like that, okay, and starts to heal. Or I'll be like, oh, you have a wood tick bite, go out and get some. So sometimes we do motherwort, but otherwise plantain is another good one, okay? So yeah, it's just a fun thing to do, and you don't have to know all the plants. It takes time, but I'll pass this around, and then I included in here, I have like little cards from when I took my herbalist classes of like cheat cards for like garden medicine, nature medicine, of how to use these things. But I pulled out elderflower, since we've been drinking some of that today. I pulled out wild cherry, because they say grow wild cherry here. And I pulled out wild hops. So these are just cards of, you can look at them and see how wild hops and these different things benefit you, and then how to use them, okay? So if you want to play with that stuff, pass it around and go ahead and look at it. So plants and herbs, there's an abundance. You just have to take a moment and start to learn what's out there. But there's really less things that you can't eat or use for medicine outside than there are that will hurt you, okay? But they do a really good job of telling you not to do it because it might be bad for you. Because guess what? There's no money in going out and foraging on your own, okay? So think about that. Spices, add spice to everything. If you like it hot, add the hot spices, add the curries, add the peppers, add the garlic, add the celery, add the onion. Spices is another way to really get your nutrient intake up. Microgreens. Anybody grow microgreens? Dabbled with that? Try it out. Back there, it looks like you guys grow it. Yes. Okay. How do you like it? Would you say that's a good return on investment for the effort it takes and how short of a time, right? Okay, so microgreen is just the first 2 leaves of a plant that come up, and then you can basically cut them off at that point and eat them and put them on stuff, and so you can just have like a little sprinkle of microgreens and it'd be equivalent to the entire fruit of like a broccoli head, okay? But broccoli greens still contain all of the nutrients in just those 2 leaves. And microgreens grow in 7 to 14 days. You trim them like you're trimming somebody's hair. You throw them on your food, on your sandwiches, on your salads, wherever. And then they grow again. You trim them again until you can't grow them anymore. And then they become really, really good compost. Okay? So that's another example for a lot, for a little. Okay? Same with sprouts. And then anytime you could add just greens to anything. So if you don't eat vegetables right now or don't get enough greens, just starting to add them to everything you eat, okay? Just put a handful on your spaghetti, put a handful in your meatloaf, put a handful on your sandwich, okay? And just start to get yourself used to eating them, because that's going to get your gut ready to take in the protein, fat, and other foods. Mushrooms. Do you guys grow mushrooms too by chance? No? Okay, that's another good ROI. Okay, so again, they can grow pretty easily in the right conditions, and you can make a lot of money off of them for what they are, and they have so much nutritional value. Another one I didn't put up here is garlic. Okay, growing garlic is another good ROI. People have to pay a lot for it. There's a market for it, and they really are easy to grow. All right, so those are other ways to do it without the traditional, you have to go to the grocery store and get all your stuff and try to eat the right stuff. I think that's it, maybe. Or maybe this is broken. Maybe that's the last one. Okay, I thought I had my contact and a book list on there, but I'll pull it up and leave it up. Like I said, you can get this PowerPoint if you want and reach out, but really my purpose is to try to, with the Soil Health Coalition and other organizations, is connect that human part to it, but also for you growers to know that you can use nutrition as a marketing tool. Okay? People are always like, oh, you can't say this is healthy or this is whatever, and maybe you don't say in that way, but there's nothing that you're doing that's lying when you say things like, this soil has I have this kind of microbiome in my soil, because that will infer that you have more vitamins and minerals and so on and so forth. And luckily, there is research coming out to show this. Places are looking at things and being able to show the comparative nutrients in plants that are grown different ways, animals that actually, graze, and their nutritional value and things like that, okay? So nutrition is powerful, and that is a market that people are attracted to as far as is this good for me? I mean, because the stuff we see in grocery stores, anybody can use the words like healthy, and, what are some other words the only word that has a standard on it is organic. But everything else is just marketing tools.